do you think there is a need to adapt their training schedules or their training plans, let's say, to the location they're from? Like you just said, hot summer months, let's say, they always working out in the summer, maybe summer in a colder region. Do you think you could adjust it a bit by that?
Yeah, and there's, I was in, I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada for 2 years,
Hmm.
and we had some NFL professional football players, like American football players, who were training in the Las Vegas heat, and some of them even it overlapped with Ramadan, so they can't drink water
Hmm.
or eat throughout the whole day. And a lot of these players just have such mental toughness to be able to keep training even in difficult conditions like that. Now, that's at the highest level. They're going to keep training no matter what, to some extent. And some athletes are maybe not as dedicated and will pull back from training for far less excuse. Um, it's hard to say overall because every athlete is so different. Their goals are different. But I think you should accommodate to the conditions. You should listen to your athlete and look at what they can handle, what they want to do. Sometimes you're just gonna have really ambitious athletes who, you know, and the one athlete I'm talking about in particular, he was kind of a player where he got a few minutes. He wasn't, particularly good, but he every year has risen and risen just from
Hmm.
the mental toughness and discipline and training year round. I've seen that, and I've seen the opposite. I've seen very highly skilled players who just will not put in the work in their off-season time period, and each year it seems like they're kind of below expectations, and they lose opportunities. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Long story short, I've been in this long enough to see both. Um, as a coach, you're always trying to meet your athletes where they're at, give them what they need, adapt. Yeah, it's just it's tough because yeah, every athlete's so different.
Yeah. Do you think it's useful? Yeah, obviously it is, but to how much should you adapt to the player, what he wants to do, what's his favorite drills, for example? Do you think it's you should force them to do your drills, or is it also good to listen to them, to obviously take in consideration if they had previous injuries or not, if they can do certain lifts, or is it like a okay give and take? You could just find
Yeah.
a midway point, or do you think it's necessary for a strength coach? Maybe someone's listening to put put the player into his programming, and no matter what, he has to follow it.
Well, I think especially the higher level the athlete is, the more experience they have training and the more training time they have, they they begin to learn their body very well. Like they know what their body is telling them. Um, so I think we as coaches have to respect that. But oftentimes the athlete doesn't know what you know. So if it's an athlete with like, knee tendon pain and we're going through like a rehab phase in the off season where they have to go slow and heavy and control stuff, they don't know necessarily that jumping can flare them up, or going really deep with their knee bending can flare them up. Maybe they were okay with that. 6 months ago, they were doing a lot of it, but that's kind of what got them into the situation they're in now. So you kind of have to sometimes put guardrails on and say, okay, I want your pain level to stay between 3 or 4 out of 10, and I want to make sure it returns after 24 hours. If it does go higher, I want to make sure it's back to 2 out of 10 24 hours later. And here's the things that we're prioritizing. Here's what we're trying to avoid for this amount of time. And that's kind of more of a rehab situation, I guess. And maybe we can now go into a strength and conditioning situation. But let's just imagine an athlete kind of knows what works well for them in terms of conditioning. Imagine like a player who's been playing several seasons now, and they've had the opportunity to get in shape for their season many times. They probably know how their own like nervous system, their own body responds to different methods of conditioning, and they kind of probably already know some amount of what they need to do. So you kind of do have to meet them with where they're at. But ideally, you are introducing like a scientific process to this and saying, okay, our test is going to be the 300-yard shuttle run, or our test is going to be a 1.5 mile run, or a 5K time trial, or whatever. And we want to improve this. So let's work together here to figure out your weekly schedule, the training methods that you like the best, the ones that I think are critical to put in your week, and let's work out like when you're going to do what, because maybe they want to do, you know, certain training sessions. It's kind of on you to work together to figure out how that's going to work and make sure that it's going to improve their testing and ultimately their performance.